farming begins our FFA creed. You know, it's amazing to think that our creed and our organization can remain intact and still as powerful today as it was 60 years ago. Continually searching for the beacon of light representing a new day in agriculture and surviving the trials and tribulations of our nation's greatest industry, agriculture. To think that our organization, whose backbone is the industry of agriculture, can survive through a so-called farm crisis is in itself astounding. Fortunately, we as FFA members today are unified in that we firmly believe in the future of agriculture. We strongly believe that our rural America can and will continue to hold true to the best traditions of our national life. Our instinctiveness for support simply surpasses the words, in that we can learn and gain valuable experience from the achievements won by our past generations of agriculturalists. We as FFA members believe in the promise that by improving our ways today, we are in turn improving upon tomorrow. We realize the fact that by improving today's FFA students, we are in turn improving upon the future of agriculture. Finally, we as FFA members realize that the better things we now enjoy have come to us from the struggles of former years. And to these past generations of agriculturalists, we owe our thanks for furnishing us the experiences of a lifetime. And what an experience it's been for me. For the past 4 years, I have worked diligently with the beliefs of our great organization in hopes that one day I may be given the opportunity to represent our state association as a state officer. It seems like only yesterday when I attended my first state convention and witnessed the heart of our organization at its best. You know, I can still recall past state president Jay Jackson's words in introducing our state officer team and the chilling sensation that ensued. I remember the numerous Sunday afternoons, Saturday evenings, and after-school sessions of preparation for the ultimate dream of serving the state association as president. Yes, fellow FFA members, we owe our gratitude, appreciation, and thanks to the past generations of agriculturalists who have stood solid for their part in that inspiring task. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rodney Kelly, advisor for the Kentucky Association of FFA. Tonight, this group has the privilege of being the first group to observe the new FFA Archives that's just been established here at the FFA Center. The purpose of the archives, we thought the Kentucky FFA, of course, is going on now 60 years in Kentucky. And we felt like it was time that we established some of the historical things that's happened to FFA over the past years. This FFA Center has a tremendous history behind it. The FFA in Kentucky has a tremendous history behind it. And the state staff and state officers' feelings, and last year that we established an archives here at the Leadership Training Center. The funds that were generated from the tobacco crop here at the FFA Center, there was a tobacco base here with the Hartsburg property. Of course, we sold that tobacco base. And the funds generated from the sale of the tobacco base, we thought we needed to utilize in a long-term, long-range type item. And that's why we want to use those funds for the establishment of the archives. And as you know, this week we've had the upstairs roped off all week. We thought that needed to be the climax of our program time. That you can see what's been going on, what's gone into the development of this center. The person that's been most responsible for the development of the archives was a member of our staff for many years. That's Mr. James D. Maddox. Mr. Maddox worked as Executive Secretary in the FFA. He was the Director of the Leadership Training Center here in Hartsburg. And Frankfurt and served as Assistant Director of Ag Education. And no one else, in my opinion, knows more about the history of FFA Kentucky than Mr. Patrick. He's worked with many of the people who conduct this center, and worked with the state staff, worked with the teachers across, and he volunteered to assist us in developing this archive. So tonight, you're going to have the privilege to see, follow the program, what's going on in developing this archive. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
This time I'd like to call Mr. James D. Maddox, retired director of the Kentucky FFA Leadership Training Center, to give us some historical highlights of the FFA of Kentucky.
I suppose that I could talk with you about the history of FFA in Kentucky for more than an hour if we had that privilege, but we'll not take that opportunity. Hopefully you will continue your interest in it by visiting the archives and look for those things that would be of interest to you there. I simply will use the few minutes that I have to review some of the highlights, and they will certainly be highlights and nothing in detail concerning the development of the FFA in Kentucky. I'd like to begin these remarks by going back to the very beginning of vocational agriculture and cause you to recognize that all of this was made possible by the establishment or the passage of the Smith-Hughes Act by the Congress of the United States in 1917, signed by then President Woodrow Wilson. And then in following that in 1917, the 1917-18 school year in Kentucky, we started vocational agriculture, 1917-1918 school year. At that particular time, there were 8 departments of vocational agriculture. It would be of interest to some of you because your grandparents might have been a student in one of these departments. I'd like to just currently mention those. The first of these 8 was in Daviess County. Mr. O.E. Beard was the teacher of agriculture, and there was also one over at the community of Utica, and Warren Payton was the teacher of agriculture. And then in Marshall County, Kentucky, there was a vocational ag department, and Mr. O.L. Mulliken was the teacher. And in Boone County, there was one at James A. Kaywood. James A. Kaywood was the teacher at Boone County. And in Muhlenberg County, at Greenville High School, Mr. Gordy Young was the teacher of vocational agriculture. And then in Mason County, at Mays Lick, was Mr. G.E. Everett. In Bourbon County, at the community of Little Rock, it was Mr. C.T. Cook. And then at a community in Fayette County, known as Maddoxtown, there was a Mr. L.W. Taylor that was the teacher there. Now, there are several things that I could mention to you, and many of these are in the booklet that's upstairs, and I'll not try to take time to do that. But most of you realize that the organization started in Virginia with the Future Farmers of Virginia following the passage of the Smith-Hughes Act. And letters from Mr. Henry Grosclose, who was the first national president of the organization, to Mr. Lawrence Bradford, who was the teacher of agriculture at Flemingsburg High School in Kentucky, are on display up here. Copies of them are on display that will give you the background for the meeting that was held in Louisville, Kentucky on April the 16th, 1930 for the establishment of the Kentucky Association of FFA. That meeting was held at the Brown Hotel. And if you scan the material up here thoroughly, you will find that the manager of the Brown Hotel indicated to those in charge at that particular time that he would provide a room for those who came for that first meeting at $1 a night. A very unusual room rate compared to what we pay now. And that he would provide a banquet for this group for $1 a plate. So you can see that we've come a long way. Now, the first set of officers for this organization was a young man from Fleming County, Flemingsburg, Raleigh Hinton. The vice president was Lee Gaither from Maysville. The secretary was Robert Hardy from Bowling Green. The treasurer was Joseph Hetty from Owensboro. The reporter was Kyle Crane from Perryville. And the advisor was Mr. F.G. Bird. Now, in 1931, following the establishment of the FFA in Kentucky, we gave the state farmer's degree the first time to 10 young men. Currently, that group of young men, and some of you may relate to them, from the Athens chapter in Fayette County was Charles Mathis and Louis Stubblefield. From the Bourbon County chapter was James Clark. From the Davies County chapter was David H. Barr, Robert Lytle, and Joseph Hetty. From Madisonville, it was Paul Stodville. And from Picadone chapter in Fayette County was Sterling McCuddy and James Rue. And then from Western Kentucky State University, or college it was at that time, was Robert Hardy. And then in 1932 then, the Kentucky Association recommended its first American farmer candidates. Those who received that recommendation in 1932, there were only two of them. One of them was Charles Mathis Jr. from the Athens chapter. The other was Joseph Hetty from the Davies County chapter. And then, of course, our organization grew from that point on. The first star farmer, and I could refer you to some of the early literature when the FFA program was published in bulletins of this nature, rather than the kind that's published in now, to a page in there that would show you who the first star farmer was, but it was established in 1942. And the first star farmer was Mr. Calvert Kelsey. Dr. Calvert Kelsey was a retired dentist in Frankfort now and manages the Kelsey properties. And then the first Courier Journal contest winner that we had, and that program was established in 1947, was Randolph Cotton from the Versailles chapter. And then the first honorary state farmer degree, we established that program too, was in 1936, and that was awarded to Mr. H.W. Peters, who was the superintendent of public instruction at that time. And then most of us didn't remember that Kentucky at one time had a state FFA band. That FFA band was established in 1941, came here at the Leadership Training Center, did their practice in preparation for playing at the state convention, played at the state convention, and then reassembled and played at the state fair. But we don't have that anymore. And then for the information of some of you, perhaps you didn't know that the Future Farmers at one time had a cooperative, an FFA cooperative. Up in the archives are some stock certificates, and this brochure on the Articles of Incorporation will be placed there at a later date. But this was established, the cooperative was established in 1943. And I could cite you just one instance of the activities of that cooperative from the publication in 1944. That it said the cooperative is a stock association, and I'll not read all of it, but it says, thus far the cooperative has engaged in assisting future farmer chapters in purchasing livestock. Now notice this, a total of 2,723 breeding ewes, 23 carloads of beef heifer calves, 5 carloads of steer calves, 1 mixed load of heifers and steer calves, and 4 truckloads of dairy calves have been secured to this date. The cooperative has done approximately $125,000 worth of business since it was organized. So that has folded and gone by the wayside for reasons that I'm not familiar with, but I believe that it was disbanded or done away with in 1948. Now, this Leadership Training Center was purchased in 1937, and your program shows you that we paid a total of $1,750 for it. Mr. E.P. Hilton, who is retired head of the Bureau of Vocational Education and Director of Agricultural Education, was the teacher of agriculture at Sickadome High School in Fayette County at the time of the purchase of it, and he was president of the Kentucky Association of Teachers of Vocational Agriculture, as it was known as in those days. And he is the individual who signed the deed deeding this property after it was purchased and deeded to the Kentucky Ag Teachers, signed the deed deeding it to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Mr. Hilton is 87 years old. I invited him to come with me tonight, but he was not able to come. Dr. Ralph Woods, who was the Director of Vocational Education at that particular time, put together a history of this facility, and that hopefully will be expanded upon and made available in booklet form at a later date. The New Farmers of America, now most of you know what the New Farmers of America was. It was the organization of the Negro group comparable to the FFA. And that was integrated into the FFA in 1965. Kentucky had the distinction of having one of the young men who served as president of that organization. He was Harvey Blaine from the Adams chapter in Hopkinsville. And then girls were admitted to the organization in 1970 when the Constitution was amended. Now, the rest of the material that I could leave with you in terms of calling your attention to it is a part of the history. Most of it is in your program. There are just a few things that I want to mention. One of them is that this archives that we have here is in no wise complete. It needs the memorabilia, the items that you may be able to find in your parents, your grandparents' trunks up in the attic or somewhere. One time we had what was called the Watson Armstrong Trophy. That trophy was discontinued. Somewhere in the state of Kentucky, that trophy is in somebody's attic or somewhere that we needed for the archive. We need such things as the little metal plow that we used to use at the Vice President's station. We need the stuffed owl that used to be used at the advisor station instead of the material that we're using now. And we need all sorts of things, and I would encourage you to go back home, ask among your family if there are things that they could share with us that could be made a part of this archive. I believe, Mr. Chairman, that I better quit because we've about run out of time, and I would like to visit with you much longer on the history of the Kentucky FFA, but I'll not do it at this time. Thank you very much.
At this time, I would like to ask Shannon Morgan to come to do the ribbon cutting. Also, I'll ask Mr. Dawson, Mr. Maddox, Mr. Kelly, please come and join Shannon for the ribbon cutting. I think that it's very appropriate that we dedicate these archives during the first week of the Kentucky FFA Leadership Training Camp. Will you please bow with me as we pray? State winners
still do that.
Oh, yeah, I am.
It's true.
Yeah.
Siri. Obey. You don't obey.
Hear me?
Follow.
Owensboro. Okay.
See here, all this is No. On this side.
Still not too late.